You need to learn your place. Now get out of my sight. The entire grand ballroom of New York's luxurious Crescent Palace Hotel fell completely silent the instant a loud ripping sound echoed beneath the sparkling crystal chandeliers. Hundreds of wealthy guests froze, totally stunned, as a young waitress stood trembling, clutching the torn pieces of her uniform. Her cheeks burned with humiliation while expensive cameras flashed from every direction. The woman who had ripped her dress wore a smug, self-satisfied smile, convinced she had just put an ordinary waitress in her place once and for all. But boy, she had no idea what was coming. Within just a few minutes, one unexpected arrival would reveal a truth so unbelievable that everyone in that ballroom, including the powerful CEO hosting the charity gala, would wish they could rewind the night and erase what had just happened. Before we dive into the story, if you believe kindness is worth more than money and that every single person deserves respect no matter what job they have, go ahead and like this video, drop a comment below, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another heart-touching story. The waitress's name was Grace Carter, a quiet 29-year-old woman whose warm, gentle smile had become familiar to everyone working at the Crescent Palace Hotel. Every employee admired her humble personality because she treated everyone with the exact same respect, whether they were a dishwasher, a janitor, or a millionaire staying in the presidential suite. What absolutely nobody knew was that Grace had once been one of the wealthiest women in America after marrying Nathaniel Brooks, the founder of one of the country's fastest-growing technology companies. Together, they had funded children's hospitals, created scholarship programs, and quietly donated millions of dollars to struggling families across the United States. Even with all that wealth, Grace insisted on keeping her identity completely private. She believed the only real way to understand people was to meet them without the protection of money, influence, or social status. That belief inspired her to volunteer several evenings every month as an ordinary waitress during charity events, refusing any special treatment, and never revealing that she was married to one of America's youngest billionaire philanthropists. That evening, the Crescent Palace Hotel was hosting one of New York City's biggest charity galas. Politicians, celebrities, CEOs, investors, and journalists packed the magnificent ballroom. The guest of honor was Michael Harrison, the ambitious CEO of Harrison Global Holdings. Walking proudly beside him was his glamorous girlfriend, Vanessa Reed, a social media celebrity who loved designer fashion, expensive jewelry, and being the center of attention almost as much as she loved reminding everyone that she was dating one of the most powerful executives in the room. Grace carefully carried a polished silver tray filled with sparkling water toward one of the VIP tables when another guest accidentally brushed against her shoulder. One glass tilted slightly, spilling only a few drops onto Vanessa's designer handbag. Honestly, it was no big deal. The tiny accident could have been solved with a napkin and a simple apology. But Vanessa completely lost it. Her furious voice echoed across the elegant ballroom, instantly grabbing everyone's attention. Every guest turned to watch as she loudly accused Grace of ruining an irreplaceable luxury handbag. Grace immediately apologized with sincerity and politely offered to have the bag professionally cleaned. But instead of calming down, Vanessa became even more cruel. She mocked Grace's waitress uniform, laughed at her modest appearance, and sneered that people like her would never understand what real success looked like. Grace quietly lowered her eyes, refusing to argue or respond with anger. She believed that dignity often spoke louder than shouting ever could. Then everything changed in a single heartbreaking moment. Vanessa suddenly grabbed the front of Grace's uniform and yanked it with all her strength. Buttons scattered across the polished marble floor as the white fabric ripped wide open. A wave of shocked gasps swept through the ballroom. Some guests quickly looked away, embarrassed by what they had just witnessed, while others secretly pulled out their phones and started recording the entire scene. Several hotel employees instinctively rushed forward, But the fear of confronting the CEO's girlfriend kept everyone rooted to the spot. Grace stood completely still, covering herself with trembling hands. Tears filled her eyes, yet she refused to scream, lash out, or demand revenge. For real, her quiet strength spoke louder than any insult ever could. Michael Harrison watched everything unfold with growing discomfort. Deep down, he knew Vanessa had crossed every possible line. Still, his fear of creating an even bigger public scene kept him from stepping in immediately. That single moment of hesitation would become one of the biggest regrets of his entire career. Outside the ballroom, a sleek black luxury sedan quietly pulled beneath the hotel's entrance canopy. The security guards immediately recognized the man stepping out. Nathaniel Brooks had unexpectedly returned from a business meeting in California after learning that Grace planned to volunteer at the charity gala that evening. He wanted to surprise his wife by joining her at the charity auction later that night. Dressed in a simple navy blue suit, without bodyguards, flashing cameras, or media attention, he walked into the hotel expecting nothing more than a joyful reunion. Instead, he walked into absolute silence. As Nathaniel stepped into the grand ballroom, his eyes instantly found Grace. For one heartbreaking second, he took in everything. The torn uniform, the tears glistening in her eyes, and the frightened expression she was trying so hard to hide. His smile disappeared in an instant. Every guest noticed the dramatic shift in his expression. Without saying a single word, Nathaniel calmly removed his perfectly tailored suit jacket and gently draped it over Grace's shoulders, shielding her from the humiliating stares. Then he slowly turned to face the crowd. The ballroom became so quiet that you could have heard a pin drop. One senior hotel executive suddenly whispered Nathaniel's name in complete disbelief. Within seconds, quiet murmurs spread from table to table as people realized exactly who had just walked into the room. Then the truth hit everyone all at once. The quiet waitress standing beside him wasn't an ordinary hotel employee. She was Grace Carter, Nathaniel Brooks' wife. The wife of one of America's youngest billionaire philanthropists. Vanessa's confidence disappeared almost immediately. She stared at Nathaniel, completely stunned, unable to understand why one of the country's most respected businessmen was protecting what she believed was just an ordinary waitress. Then someone quietly explained the truth. Grace wasn't working because she needed the paycheck. She volunteered by choice. She was the woman whose charitable foundation had donated millions of dollars to children's education programs throughout the United States. Even more incredible, Grace had personally funded scholarships for the children of hotel employees for years without ever attaching her own name to a single donation. Talk about a reality check. The atmosphere inside the ballroom changed completely. The same people who had stood silently only moments earlier now lowered their heads in embarrassment and shame. Michael Harrison finally stepped forward, fully realizing that his silence had allowed cruelty to go unchecked. Standing before every guest in the ballroom, he offered Grace a sincere public apology, admitting that true leadership wasn't about protecting pride. It was about protecting people's dignity. He then announced that Vanessa's behavior had absolutely no place in any organization connected to his company, and officially ended their public partnership that very night. The applause that followed wasn't for wealth, influence, or power. It was for accountability. Nathaniel could have easily destroyed Vanessa's reputation using lawyers, media attention, or his enormous influence. Instead, he simply held Grace's hand and sincerely thanked every hotel employee who had tried to comfort her during the painful incident. Then Grace surprised everyone once again. She quietly requested that no revenge be taken. She explained that humiliation should never be answered with more humiliation. Instead, she hoped the painful experience would become a lesson in compassion, kindness, and respect rather than hatred and bitterness. Her words and her forgiveness left countless guests wiping tears from their eyes. Within just a few days, the story spread across the entire country. Millions of people watched the security footage online, But what truly touched their hearts wasn't the ripped uniform or the public humiliation. It was the incredible grace shown by a woman who refused to let someone else's cruelty change who she was. Grace's quiet strength inspired people from every corner of the nation. Donations to children's charities skyrocketed after the incident, as thousands of people were moved by her compassion and generosity. Businesses across the United States began introducing new workplace respect programs, using Grace's example as a reminder that every employee deserves to be treated with dignity. Michael Harrison also made a promise he intended to keep. The painful events of that evening completely transformed the culture within his company. From that day forward, kindness, respect, and employee dignity became the foundation of his leadership, replacing fear and pride with compassion and accountability. Several months later, Grace returned to the Crescent Palace Hotel wearing the very same simple waitress uniform she had always chosen to wear. This time, however, everything felt different. Every employee welcomed her with genuine smiles, heartfelt gratitude, and deep respect. Not because she was married to a billionaire, but because she had reminded everyone that true greatness has absolutely nothing to do with wealth, fame, or powerful titles. Real greatness is measured by humility, compassion, quiet strength, and the courage to forgive when revenge would be so much easier. If this story touched your heart, take a quick moment to like this video, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another inspiring story. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful stories that encourage kindness, hope, and compassion all around the world. Before you go, let us know in the comments. If you had witnessed Grace being humiliated that night, what would you have done? At the end of the day, life's greatest treasures aren't expensive clothes, luxury cars, or impressive job titles. They're the moments when ordinary people choose compassion over pride, forgiveness over revenge, and kindness over cruelty. Because, for real, those are the moments that truly change the world.